This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, let me get started. I'm going to do the first slides. And, this program is called Solarize Meridian, and it's based on a program that's been very successful in the city of Ann Arbor. It's sponsored by the Meridian Energy Team, which is a resident advisory group to the township, and the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association, which is helping communities around the state do these types of programs. And as many of you know, I'm John Sarver. I live on Bircham Drive. And if you have any questions after this presentation, feel free to just contact me by email. As you can see, johnsarver3@gmail.com. And also, if you do want to stop by and just chat with me, that's fine too. Just send me a note and we can arrange a time that's good for both of us. And of course, my systems are on the front of the house. So feel free to just walk by and check them out. Tonight's meeting, I'm going to talk a little about why I went solar and why you might want to consider it, how I selected my installer, a little about my solar system, and talk a little about the federal tax credit, the distributed generation tariff, which is the utility tariff that you'd be on with the solar system, some of the financing options, and then Pete's going to talk about the basic solar system that's available from Absolute. And, there are going to be some add-ons that you can consider. But tonight, we're just going to give you basically the basic solar system so you can get an idea of what's involved and what the pricing would be, which Pete will talk about. And then we'll talk about some deadlines for the program in order to get the group discount. And then, like I said, we'll have some times for questions. Well, why go solar? It's good for you, the pocketbook. It's certainly good for the planet with respect to air pollution and greenhouse gases. For a residential homeowner, it typically pays for itself in about 10 years. And so, your panels are lasting 25 or more years. So one way to look at it is that you're going to get your money back in about 10 years, and then you have free electricity for about 15. The solar system does add value to your home. Research has shown that. Now, how much value can be, depends on who the buyer is, I guess. One thing that's recently happened, fairly recently, which is a real benefit, was a state law was passed. So there's going to be no increase in property taxes when you install a solar system. A solar system is now considered kind of like other types of home improvements that by law don't increase your property assessments. Now, what does happen though, assuming again you add value to your home, at some point when your home is sold, the extra value of the solar system is reflected in the selling price. And so the new homeowner will end up having an increase in the property taxes. There's no maintenance to speak of at all. And one advantage with the approach we're using here is that every meeting attendee who decides to go ahead and buy a system has another 1% discount for everybody else. And so if 8 group members decide to buy, each of you would get an 8% discount, up to a maximum of 15% discount. When we were promoting this program, I did have an email from somebody that said basically, so if I get 100 people to sign up, right, we all get free solar systems. And I said, no, it's not that good a deal. There is that maximum 15%. Actually, a big incentive, we still have a federal tax credit, 26%, which is a significant incentive. So how was the installer selected? Like a lot of home projects, I got 3 proposals. I looked at the different proposals, asked a lot of questions. I compared the dollars per watt for total installed cost before the tax credit, because sometimes you get proposals from solar installers that are before the tax credit or after the tax credit, and maybe different size systems. And so you convert it all down to dollars per watt before the tax credit. You can have a good comparison of competing prices. And, like a lot of home projects, considered cost, experience, type of warranties, and responsiveness. Is the installer going to work with you and be timely? And so I decided Absolute Solar was the best proposal and selected them. Now, I actually have two solar systems. I'm really going to talk about the most recent one, because that's the one that's relevant to, I think, the folks on the call. My first system was a roof integrated system, which means it serves as roofing in addition to a solar system. Those are more expensive, and also they're not that easy to find anymore. And so I ended up getting, you can see the picture to the left, actually ended up getting 7 310-watt panels, which is a total of a little over 2 kilowatts, monocrystalline and micro inverters. You can kind of see there, though, that there's 10 panels, and we ended up only having me get 7 because, and I'll talk a little more about this later, Consumers Energy will only let you have enough solar that basically would meet your needs over the course of a year. You can't have more solar and produce more power than you would use. The picture to the right kind of shows you the 3 panels that are on one part of my house, and on the other side of that roof is the other 4 panels. Now, this is just a real basic look at what the solar system is like. And for some of you, this is kind of, you've probably seen this before. But, you know, a lot of times solar systems are put on roofs, and sometimes, though, they're kind of put in the yard if you have a good sunny spot and have a decent sized yard, and those are ground mounted. But a lot of folks put up what's called rooftop. And so, you know, the sun comes out there, and sunshine, you know, generates those electrons, they get moving. The electrons that are generated are DC. And so they're converted into AC, which is what we use in our homes by that inverter. And during the summer, it's not unusual for a solar system to actually produce more power than you would use on site. And in that situation, the extra power is sent out to that utility pole and basically goes to your neighbor who you know, gets the electrons. Of course, the utility is charging them for that. The bill credit that the utility gives you this day is about half the retail rate. And so it's you know, the more power you use on site, actually you end up saving more, because you're, you know, replacing basically electricity at the retail rate. So what happens in the winter, your system is probably not producing as much power as you need. And so you're drawing power from the utility and using up those bill credits. Federal tax credit, like I said, 26% this year. It'll still be in place next year, but it'll be down to 22%. And then at the present time, becomes 0 in 2024. Now there's a lot of talk in Congress about renewing the tax credits. And so, you know, we could get an extension, and maybe there'll be a 26% or maybe even 30% tax credit next year. I don't think they'll go back to 30%, but who knows what Congress might do. The distributed generation tariff, that's a situation where if you have excess electricity during the summer, typically, you know, it goes to the utility, they resell it to your neighbor. This distributed generation tariff replaced net metering, which was a similar program, but at that point you got a bill credit at the retail rate. The existing system is you can still get bill credits, but it's a little more than half the retail rate from Consumers Energy. And like I described before, in the summer, you're typically going to earn bill credits. In the winter, you use them. And like I mentioned with the panels on my house too, you can only have a system that's no longer, it cannot be bigger than what you use over the course of a year. And so it has to be sized to your electric usage. You know, the utility and you will look at your past year's electric use to kind of determine what would be appropriate for your situation. Financing, you know, savings, of course, you've got enough money in the bank. I think you're going to earn a much better rate of return with the solar system than you get for any bank out there or credit union. Home improvement loans, home equity loans are the best interest because you've got a secured loan. Michigan Saves is a statewide program that actually has unsecured loans, and they have a little better interest rates because they have a reserve for losses, which makes it easier for the banks and credit unions to offer a little better rates. Not as good as a home equity loan because it's an unsecured loan, but an MSU Federal Credit Union has a Michigan Saves program. And now I'm going to turn it over to Pete to talk about the basic system that's available from Absolute.
Again, hello, I'm Pete Morgan. I worked with Absolute for a little bit over 2 years. I was a customer before I was an employee. So if you have any questions about my experience, both from a customer or from an employee standpoint, I'm more than happy to do that. The basic proposals that we send out have Q-cell solar panels, and that's a tier 1 panel. We're not beholden to any particular company. What we try and do is find a quality, price, and efficiency that's going to fit with most people's budgets. If you do ask for proposal at some point, we will have like a premier panel, but we're also open to lots of different options if you are interested in that. But the Q cells are readily available. They do have a plant in the US that opened in Dalton, Georgia in 2019. You can see the general size. We will try and make the design as aesthetically pleasing as we can. But really the thing we're going to try and do first and foremost is get the best irradiance areas of your home roof space. That way you're maximizing the efficiency of the system. They are all black frames and cells, which again, aesthetically pleasing. We know that that's really important. We want your home to look as nice as it can, both for you and for possible resale value down the road. Everything we do is the racking is with Iron Ridge. That's a US company. And then most of our installs, we use Solar Edge inverters and optimizers. We are not beholden to that technology. We can definitely get you a price on like a micro inverter if you've heard anything about that. Questions about those would probably be better on like an individual level rather than going too deep into them over this Zoom. But if you do have any questions, we are more than happy to answer them about any of the equipment that we use. John touched on this earlier, that one of the nice things about Solarize is there's an incentive for doing more solar in your neighborhood. And so one of the most frequent questions that we get, and we were at the Lansing Home Show this last weekend, and probably 90% of the first questions were, well, how much is it going to cost me? And the answer to that really varies on how much electricity you use. Some people use a lot, and that can be because they have big families with lots of kids and lots of things going on in devices, or it could just be the things that you have. It could be a 2-person home that heats their floors with electricity. So one of the first things that we do is we ask for a bill. So as John said, that we can get the right system for your home, because consumers or DTE or BWL or whoever the utility is will only let you do 100% of your offset. So we want to design it to that. But within that, we also have this a pricing system, which is basically the bigger the system you buy, the less expensive it's going to be. Milk is cheaper at Costco than it is at the corner store. When we're able to put these things in together. And then, so if you see that you have a smaller system, like a 4 kilowatt system, the price is going to be less. So you're going to get, with the discount of people signing up, it's going to go down. And then you're also going to get the federal tax credit with that. A bigger system of 12 kilowatts or more, going to be more expensive, but you're also going to get a bigger incentive from the government. This is going to be pretty important. As a general rule, we don't want to be a high pressure in our sales, but we are working on a tight schedule. And for the Solarize neighborhood discount to work, we need to move relatively quickly. And so what we have is from tonight, you have 1 week to request a site visit in which we will come over to your house, look over some things, talk about some different options, and then we will get a proposal to you. We will work really hard to get that proposal to you within 1 to 2 weeks. And honestly, a lot of that is going to be how many people request proposals. If we have 3 people that come in and say, we'd like a proposal, well, we can do that relatively quickly. If we have 10 to 15, that takes more time to get to the visits, to get all the information in, to get the proposals out. So once you get that proposal, you have 2 weeks to decide if you'd like to buy in at the discounted rate. And that's 2 weeks from when you get your proposal, not 2 weeks from the last person to get their proposal in. So we're trying to, again, condense. We're happy to answer questions through all of that time. But just to be kind of as upfront as we can is what we expect and how we're going to be able to do this as efficiently as possible.
Well, that's the presentation. So, it's time for questions and discussion. And, some of you may be used to using. Some of you may be used to using. What's that? What's that? Oh, some of you may be used to using the reactions button at the bottom where you can raise your hand. This is a small group, so if you want to, you can just unmute yourself and just wave at me or Pete, and we'll try to answer any questions you have. Go ahead, Mike.
I just had a couple questions. I want to know about your roof condition. I mean, you're putting that panel over your roof. Does that have to be like, you better have a pretty decent or new roof on it before you put these panels on it?
That's a great question. Our rule of thumb is if you think you've got maybe less than 10 years on your roof, then it's probably a good idea to have it looked at. We can look at it when we're there. We have some experience, working with roofs and whatnot. We do have a couple of roofers that we are willing to, we've had experience with a good relationship, people have spoken highly of to look at. But the flip side of that is, if you're pretty confident that your roof is okay, one of the nice parts about solar is that having panels which will absorb that UV ray that come through the heat, the rain, the snow, all of those, it can actually extend the life of your roof a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Now, my next question is like battery storage. Now, I see some people have like battery storage, like a Gentech or something like that, where it stores power. Say you bought an electric vehicle and you want to charge your vehicle. I mean, do these things feed into a battery storage too, or does it have to go to the utility?
Okay. First of all, this is just a general statement. You do not have to have a battery for your system to work. That's a common misconception. Right. We do install batteries. We do have connections depending on the system for EV hookups and things like that. But it's probably better to discuss those a little bit more on the individual level when we get to that point. But we do install EV chargers, and we do have battery options for the systems that we install. Yes.
Okay.
I was just going to mention, I don't have any batteries in my system. And of course, one of the disadvantages with that is that, if the utility, we lose power, the system doesn't work. And some people don't appreciate the fact that because we're grid tied, that, lose power, basically the solar's not going to help me out. I got to go to the Marriott with everybody else until the power is restored. But I did just recently have Absolute install an EV charger. And so depending on whether my solar is producing power or I'm getting it from the utility, the EV is going to be charged either by utility power or my power. So it doesn't require a battery. And in our neighborhood, Keystone, we really haven't lost power very often. So I never thought it was necessary, but I have talked to people that in other parts of the state that lose power almost regularly. And boy, if I was in that boat, I'd probably think about batteries. But you might have another question.
My last question is, he mentioned 3 size systems, like a 4-watt or 8-watt, 12. What size is yours, John?
I have a very small system. The first one was 1.2 kilowatts and the second system was 2.2. But a typical system is 4 kilowatts or even larger than that. I guess typical systems are 4 to 10 kilowatts. Part of the reason my system provides probably 2/3 of my power, but if you talk to my daughters, I like to think that I'm frugal, and I don't use much electricity. My daughters use other terms than frugality, but so it does depend a lot on your habits, but also, like Pete said, depending on what you use for.
So really, it's all about your utility bill then.
Oh yeah,
Whatever your bill is, then Pete will tell us you need to have this size, right?
exactly. Yes,
All right.
he'll be able to look at your electric usage, and then look at your orientation and be able to, and your shading if you have any. Probably you won't, hopefully, or very little, and then you'll be able to say, yeah, this is the size system that. Now the big decision, and Pete mentioned this, is do you want a system that provides 40% of your power, 60%, 100%? That obviously it costs more, but you're saving more too. But so the nice thing about solar, it's very modular. So, you don't have to buy a certain size. You can buy whatever size you can afford and whatever size is appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
And I have get just apples to apples. I have a 17 kilowatt system. So I have a big system. Mine is ground mounted. I have 3.5 acres. But when we had ours installed, I had already built a mother-in-law suite on my house. So we have basically 2 families living here. We already had our EV, we had our pool pump. And so our electric bill was big. And if we had to get a big system to offset that, and we did offset 100%.
Pete, I had a question. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. I just had a question again about the mechanics and the timing of this. So we basically have until the end of this week to request you to come out and make a site visit. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And then once you've made the site visit, you will provide us with a quote. And then once we receive the quote, we have 2 weeks to accept or not accept your quote.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we do accept your quote, what's the timing like from that point, and how long does a typical installation take?
Okay. There are some, mitigating factors in that: pitch of the roof, weather, things like that. The size of the system, it's a really big ground mounted system. It may take a little bit more time, but most of the time it's within that week area. In terms of when we can start the install, right now we are booked around June, and we operate on a first come first serve basis. So it's going to be in that kind of middle of summer, maybe even pushing toward the end of the summer, just depending on how many people sign up.
Okay.
So we would plan on it being up and running this year, before the summer is over.
Hey, and Pete, how long, once you're on site, how long typically does it take you to install a system?
Depending on the size of the system, usually it's less than a week. I would say 3 to 4 days on most roof mounted systems. The first day we kind of get it mapped out and get what we call flash feed in. Those are the devices that go up underneath the shingles and define the studs to make sure that they're secure. Then the racking and the optimizers or microinverters go up. Then the panels go up, and then it's wiring it into your house and getting it commissioned.
And could you explain what permits we need to get? Do we need to get a permit from Meridian Township, from consumers? What kind of paperwork is involved with this?
Wonderful. Yes, as a company, we take care of all permitting and all applications. So unless you want to do something, which I would recommend against, especially with consumers, that can be a little bit difficult to navigate sometimes, but we would take care of that. We do have to pass electric, we do have to pass building, and then the system has to be approved by size from consumers are the main things that you're dealing with. But as you'll see in the proposal, we take care of all of that.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Hi, it's Jason Wolf. Is Absolute the only company offering the extra % discount?
Well, with respect to the way we're doing Solarize, yeah, in order to really get a group discount, you have to have a certain, economies of scale with respect to kind of doing the work. So
Okay.
we have a situation where each of the meetings that the township will be sponsoring, a lot of them Absolute Solar will be the installer, but not all of them necessarily. And there is, if you wonder about competitive prices, we have identified 5 solar installers who are interested in participating in our program. And so if you wanted to get like a second opinion on the price, I can provide you a list of those 5 installers. Now, if you decided to go that route, what I'd recommend is that the day you basically ask Absolute Solar for a proposal, I would contact some of the other installers and ask them also to come out and do a site visit. Because the way Pete kind of laid this out, before you actually have to make a buy decision, it'll take almost a month. And so you should be able to get a second opinion proposal, let's say from another installer within that month period, just to kind of compare prices. Now that other installer has no incentive to offer you a discount because they're just offering you a solar system, but that's always, and like I said, I've got a list of those 5 installers. I'd be happy to share it with anybody if you want to kind of get another proposal just to do a cost comparison.
Yeah, that'd be great because I've already reached out to one actually.
Okay,
Second question relative to Absolute Power. If we did decide to do with battery backup, does that discount also apply to that portion of the system or only the panels?
And can you ask that again?
If you did decide to add battery backup as part of the system, is the discount applied to the entire system or only part of it?
All the system. Yeah, we'll fall under all of it. It won't affect the price per watt at all.
Right.
So that will stay within the group rate, and then the system that part will be added on. And then it would, all of those, if it's bought together or purchased together, would fall under the federal tax credit.
Are you able to install power walls?
We don't have access to Tesla products in Michigan very easily. Most of the distributors.
Okay.
So yeah.
Pete, who do you use for your batteries typically?
It depends on the install. So if we do a microinverter system, Enphase has their own battery. If we do an optimizer system with SolarEdge, they have their own battery, and we have used LG in the past. Although we've the last couple months, LG has hit some pretty serious supply chain issues. So a lot of our distributors have actually moved away from LG until they can continue to back up their timelines with what they are predicting.
All right, thank you.
We have several questions in the chat window.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, we
he
can
can
ask
look-
the ones that we put
We can
there,
look in
yes.
chat.
Yeah.
Go ahead and look in chat, Pete.
I've got it. So the first one is from WB. Do you know if the utilities will consider estimating if you move gas items to electric? Yes, they will. When we say that we can offset 100% of your electric consumption, that's based on the bill that we will ask you. If you want a proposal, the first thing we're going to say is, can you send over a bill? And the thing we're looking up for right off the bat is if you're a consumer's customer, that 12-month graph then up in the corner that tells you what you use. If you want to send over more from the bill, that'd be great, because that gives us some of the rates that they do. It can just helps us to dial it in a little bit more. But so we can do 100% of that But if you know that you are going to be using more electricity, say you have bought an electric range or an electric hot water heater, or you've even bought an EV and you have like the receipt, we can submit that with the application and say, we know they're going to be using more. So we're going to request this size system with more panels. And we've had a lot of success with that. They may not say, oh, we'll give you all of it, but they'll let us grow the system. Does that answer that question, WB? I'm not sure exactly who it was that falls under that.
No, that did answer it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. And then Elaine, have you had any neighborhoods with local condos? Not locally with condos, but we have worked with communities that have shared roofs, shared spaces, shared walls. And so we basically just had to go to the associations the same way we would with like a homeowners association and say, this is what we're proposing. Are you willing to do that? And most of the time it's gone over very well. Yes, there is a warranty for potential damage on the roof. Our roof warranty is 10 years for all the penetrations that we make. And the only reason it's only 10 years is if it hasn't shown up in 10 years, we don't think that it's going to show up. So pretty much everything in the system will have a 25-year warranty. That's the material warranty on panels, excuse me, the optimizers, the microinverters. If you went with the Solar Edge system, and again, I can talk a lot more about this on site visit without going too into detail. The central inverter has a 12-year warranty, but we have a warranty upgrade, which would take that to 25. Our service warranty is 3 years. So if anything happens within that 3 years, we come out free of charge, just like if something happened in your refrigerator. After that, then there would be a service charge and just an hourly fee. Then the question, last one under that Elaine asked is, what is a Powerwall? Powerwall is Tesla's battery system. So it's just the fancy name that they have. Every company has their own verbiage for it. N-phase battery is an N charge. Solar Edge's battery is a home backup. Tesla's is a Powerwall. And then JW just asked, would appreciate if the list of all the installers that are part of the program. Thank you. That's more for you, John.
Yep.
Question?
Go ahead,
Question?
Bob.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can. Yep.
Without getting into an advanced physics lesson, tell me what it means to say this panel is a 310 watt panel. Is that its output under optimal conditions? That means that's sort of the max that you will expect out of that.
Sure. So yeah,
on a clear summer day in Michigan.
High solar noon, you're going to get 310 watts out of that panel with no obstructions if you've got a straight southern facing roof. So, and again, just to expand on that a little bit, because this was a question I had, when we talk about a 4 kilowatt system, what does that mean? I have a 17 kilowatt system. What does that mean? That's all of the panels added up together. And then at the optimum conditions, then you can get 4 kilowatts an hour or 17.52 kilowatts an hour, whatever it may be. So that's not all you can get in a day. That's what you get in an hour. So this arc of the day will produce a lot more than just what that system is rated to. So I have, go ahead.
And then in passing, at some point you said something rated at I forget the number, 32% efficiency or something. Is that obviously
percent of the total sun's available light that can be absorbed by that panel? Okay. So anything other than 20% is considered really high top tier efficiency.
Okay, so that's really a measure of comparing the efficiency of various panels.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a penalty or a factor that Consumers Energy uses to re-rate your system.
Yeah, okay. They're just going to look at how much energy you use in a year and can we offset that?
Yeah, and PJ may want to elaborate on this. You know, a lot of times you have premium panels, and one reason the reason they're premium is they're more efficient. And, if you have limited space, sometimes that's a good strategy to just get the more efficient panel because you just don't have the space. But if you have enough space, sometimes you just get an extra panel or two, so it just depends on your situation. A lot of the Pete, right, a lot of the panels now are in the low 20s, right, with respect to efficiency.
Yeah.
In the commercial area, you can read about research they're doing at some university where they're up to 29 or 30%, but those aren't commercially available. Yeah. Tia, I think you got a question. Go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, I've got two questions, if you don't mind, Pete. First one, there's probably no way to differentiate between the electricity that you're getting from the solar versus from the grid, right? You just hook it up to the grid. So like if I was to, if I wanted to charge my EV during the day, only using my solar system, that's just not possible. It just has to be from the grid, whether that is coming from my solar or not. Did that make sense?
I think so. Let me try, and if it doesn't answer your question,
Sure.
Tell me, and I'll try and take another swing at it. So the way the system is set up, you saw the picture that John showed. So it's always going to be powering your house first. Okay. So whether you have a system where it's set up, hooked up right from the inverter, which we can do like to an EV charger, which doesn't have to have then a 240 wired into your garage or wherever. There are some technologies that allow us to go straight from the inverter.
Okay.
Or whether it is a 240, it's always going to be powered. So because you're grid tied, if you're charging during the day when you're producing, then you're not buying any of that energy that's coming in. You're using your own. Okay. But you're still going to be grid tied. So if you wait until nighttime, and consumers actually has what they call a super off-peak rate for EVs. Right. So if you want to charge at a lower rate, you can do it from 11 to, I think it's 6 a.m. Doing that. But yes, you will always be able to charge your car. One of the advantages of the SolarEdge hub inverter, which is EV and battery compatible, is that it's a smart charger. And so you can actually program it to charge at certain times to certain levels and things like that.
Okay. All right.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you. This is quick. When you're installing it, the optimum, correct me if I'm wrong, is southwest, right? Is that your optimum, facing yes. direction? What if that doesn't work with the roof? Do you still lay it horizontal as close as possible, or do you like angle it out with the, I mean, how do you, because it looks like every time I look at solar installations, it's horizontal to the roof. It's not really angled.
You mean putting them up on different racking so they're going to be at different angles? Or
right.
Putting them
are
on
you trying to actually get southwest as much as possible, or, like it just depends on the way the roof is laid?
We're going to use as much of the good irradiance where that's going to get the best quality sunshine and be most efficient as possible. So if you have a good south-facing roof, that's where we're going to lead off with. If your house has east-west, then we're going to look at the radar, satellite imagery, and shading, all of that, and we're going to put them in the places that are most optimal. Okay. And we will clear that with you beforehand, and we'll give you the reason why we did, and you'll actually have an irradiance part of your map of your roof where you'll see why we put them there and why we didn't put them in other places.
Okay.
Almost all systems are installed on roof to kind of be flat and go with the roof line or whatever you want to call it, just for aesthetic reasons. If it was kind of like at all sorts of angles, it would look kind of strange. So I think nobody does it. They do try to pick the best part of your roof, but I have panels now that are west facing and kind of east facing and south facing. So, that's, it's just a matter of, how much power you can get and whether the economics work. So ideal orientation is seldom achieved. It's usually some sort of compromise. David, do you have some questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, I've just got a couple. The first is that I haven't been in my new home in a year, so I don't have 12 months worth of usage. Is that going to be an issue possibly?
The only issue with that is we will have to estimate using what the consumption model that you do have. If it's been 7 months, it's a little bit easier than if it's been 1. We've done 1 month before, and we've gotten them approved through consumers. But the more we have, the closer we know to dialing in exactly what you're going to use to offset that. So we may make an estimate based on what we know, and consumers may say, no, you're going to have to drop 2 panels off of this or a certain number of watts. So it's not a problem. It just is a little bit less certain of what we will end up with.
Okay. And then the federal tax credit, if you were to get a battery in addition to the panels, does the tax credit also apply to the batteries as well? And it's
Yes.
the same percentage. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Elaine, I'll answer your question about the installing the type of panels that replace windows. There's a lot of research related to those, but those aren't really commercially available yet. And actually, there's a researcher at MSU, Dr. Lund, who's actually working on that. And actually, they're doing a demonstration on campus where there'll be a window that actually will produce solar power. But that's the stage that technology is at now, is basically demonstration stage. And it's kind of neat that we have an MSU researcher who's kind of state of the art.
Yes, I had listened in on his talk some time ago, so I just wasn't sure what the state of those panels was.
It's coming, apparently, and fairly soon we could probably go to campus and look at them, but it'll probably just look like a window.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Hey, Pete, one question is, can you give us an idea, say you wanted to do the solar and you wanted to add a battery, what is the extra charge for like the battery? What's that backup run compared to the?
It depends on the battery, and I can get you that in a quote. It's going to be in the over $10,000 range.
Is it really? Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be 10, 12, 14, depending on the size of the battery, depending on that.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe a battery's not useful then.
I do want to say, and again, this is just out there, that we can do some things right now that would set you up for a battery. And we do expect battery prices to go down in the near future. So you can be battery hookup compatible or ready with some of the installs that we have now. You pay an extra little bit for an inverter, which is ready for a battery to be wired into it. So that way, if 3-4 years down the line, the push that we're seeing by the auto industry, by the other public spheres, when those prices become more efficient, or when the batteries become more efficient and the prices go down, become more affordable. One of the things that I've been saying a lot recently, and John can probably back me up on this, at the GLREA Gala, one of the presenters said that in the last 10 years, solar prices have gone down 90% and efficiency has gone up 90%. We think batteries are going to be on that general timeline as well.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So if you think batteries are in your future, we have some options, even if it's a little bit pricey right now.
T, do you still have another question, or get your hand raised again? So.
Oh, me? No, I'm good.
Okay. Charles,
I
you
have a
have
question. Yeah, I was wondering, how does this affect your home insurance policy? Do you notify your home insurance company that you now have solar panels, and is it something they insure?
Yeah. We've had experience where it happens both ways. I'll tell you my experience. I called my insurance agent, and again, I have a roof mounted or a ground mounted system, so that's a little bit different. But they said, nope, you're already covered. You don't need to do anything. I've had a couple of people who called their insurance agency, and because it's attached to your house, because it does not move at all, because there's no maintenance needed, they added maybe $100 a year. And it's the same kind of thing that if you're worried about a branch falling on your roof, you know, that you might get insured for, then you might want to look into it. It's always good policy to call first, but most people have found that it's not a huge expense.
Okay, great.
Any other,
And-
go ahead.
I was just gonna say there was one thing, and I don't know if I said this earlier or not, so if I'm repeating myself, I apologize. But on the size of the system, yes, you can only get approved for 100%, and we can apply for something. But also, if you over time use more, you add an EV later, in 3-4 years down the line, something like that, we can always apply for more. So just because you're getting 100% now or 50% now, based it on a budget, then you can always grow that in the future. That's just another, if it's not 100%, it's another application to consumers, or if you're overproducing what you have, then we can add on to that system. So you're not locked in forever with what you put on at this point.
Well, that's the nice thing about solar, because it is modular, so you can add panels in later if you want to, and pay the extra price and get the extra power. So we're kind of winding down, but any other questions before we it's about 7:50 now. We said this.
So what's the next step then if we're interested? How do we contact to get things lined up for a home inspection? Or
what I was planning on doing was send you all an email tomorrow with copying Pete and basically kind of remind everybody that you've got until next Monday to decide. And then what you can do is you just can reply to both of us and say that you're interested, and Pete will follow up with you and schedule a visit. So you should all be getting an email sometime tomorrow from me, and like I said, Pete will be copied. And if you kind of say, "Yep, I'm ready for it," then Pete will schedule you for something in the near future. Okay, I think anything else before we? Okay. Hey, thanks everybody for coming. I appreciate you kind of taking the time.
Yeah, thank you. We are very excited to be a part of this. So thank you, John, for hosting, and for everyone for coming.
Thank you, guys.
Take care, everybody. Have a good week.
You too.
Bye.